One, welcome into Higher Living. Happy Friday to everyone. And we have jumped the pond tonight. So freaking excited to have you on. Helen, my friend, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
I'm so excited, honestly, to have you on. I didn't even tell you all this before, but you've been one of the most significant people that has changed my life and inspired me in so many ways. So many ways. And I know that I helped you and coached you. When did we meet? Let's go back to that. Five,
Oh,
6, 7?
that'll be nearly 6 years.
It's
Must
gotta
be.
be.
It
Anyway,
doesn't seem it. It doesn't seem it, does it?
no, it doesn't. Thank you for being on. Honestly, I'm so grateful to have you as a friend, as family, and honestly, in some of my toughest times, you, my friend, have kept me going, and don't ever lose sight of that. But what we're going to talk about today is just a little bit about your story. We met on Twitter 6-ish years ago, and Helen reached out to me in my early on coaching days. We had some great laughs, but truly, you're an amazing human being. Honestly, I'm really honored to have you on. So thank you.
That's cool. Took you long enough to get me on here, didn't it?
Hey, it took me long enough. I've had this shit set up and stuff for like a year. So I'm finally just getting it going. But yeah, why not now? Now's the only time, right?
Exactly.
How are things in the UK?
Getting colder.
Yeah.
Nothing exciting, really.
When do you guys change time?
Um, the 29th, I think. End of the
Okay.
month.
All
Yeah.
right, cool. That's a running joke for everybody watching that no one gives a shit about, is me trying to keep up with the time change. But the US and the UK change at different times. And I absolutely want to have you on multiple times, but we got to start somewhere. So you just have this is about surviving to get to thriving. And I think I know very few humans who have been through things that you've been through and not only survive, but just keep on getting better and better. So why don't let's start out. Tell us a little bit about your early life.
well, well, my early life was it was difficult from the
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
because I was raised by um, a very proud, strict, but very old-fashioned father,
Mm-hmm.
and a mother who wasn't British. She originally came from Singapore,
Mm-hmm.
but due to her own traumatic start in life, she became quite mentally poorly
Mm-hmm.
and didn't believe in modern medicine, so she
Mm-hmm.
never ever got help for her
Mm-hmm.
condition.
Yeah.
So when I came along, things were quite complicated because, for a start, um, I was a disappointment because I'm a girl and I should have been a boy. So from the very start,
Mm-hmm.
um, things were very, very difficult. And growing up with a family unit like that, being an only child as well,
Mm-hmm.
was very, very difficult, very lonely
Mm-hmm.
and scary kind of childhood. I
Yeah.
was never taught about, I was just put in school and
Mm-hmm.
expected to learn from the teachers. I wasn't taught anything at home by my parents.
Yeah.
So it was tough. It was very tough. And Dad kept a lot of secrets from me
Mm-hmm.
as well. I used to think my mum was just mean.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as my story goes on, I found out a lot of things as I got older.
Yeah.
But she would often lash out at me and call me names, and a lot of it was behind my father's back when he'd be at work, and he knew, but he buried his head in the sand and worked to bring in the money and didn't tell anybody anything. So everything was difficult. School was difficult.
Yeah.
And I think my only escape was I would spend time on my own in the garden when the weather was nice, and I would pretend I was somebody else.
Yeah.
I loved animals. I used to escape to the neighbours to visit the rabbits and things like that when I could, and that was how I got by. When Dad wasn't there, I kept out of Mum's way, and that way there wouldn't be any trouble.
Yeah.
But I always felt really alone.
Yeah.
And like I couldn't approach my parents about anything. So,
we have that background similar, and not that they weren't always there, whatever, but I grew up the same way. I know that. It's definitely a bond, but yeah,
it was difficult. I mean, if I approached, my dad was never there. He worked all the time. So I remember when I was going from primary school to secondary school, I said to my mum I didn't want to do it because I was afraid. It was change. She told me to just get on with it.
Yeah.
Suck it up and get on with it. Yeah. Not my problem, it's your problem.
Yeah.
So in a way, I suppose it's good that I was pushed into facing my fears, but it would have been nice to have a little bit of advice and a bit of support and to know that she was there.
Absolutely.
You know, but.
And I know it got worse, didn't it? I mean, there was a lot of things you went through.
There were a lot of things that I went through. I mean, going into my teenage years, being young, you tend to react to things quickly without thinking. It's like with my mum, I began to rebel a little bit, and in my mind, I hated her. Absolutely hated her. I couldn't stand her. I hated my mother with a passion. That's how I felt at the time, and a lot of it was I purely didn't understand her health, her mental health. It just meant nothing to me.
Yeah.
All I had were raw feelings for as far as I could remember about Mum not being there, and I had to struggle with everything myself.
Yeah.
And the older I got, the more resentful she became of me, and I became resentful of her. And by the time I was 16, that was it. I was out. She didn't care that I didn't have anywhere to go or anything like that. I was out. Yeah. And I was seeing somebody who I went to school with at the time, and his family offered to put me up for free. So I went to live with my boyfriend's family, and that turned out to be a huge mistake.
Really?
Because, and this is how bizarre my mum was. She said so many times how much she didn't want me to be around, yet all of a sudden she turned around to my dad and said, I've got over £1,000 that I want you to give to her.
To get you to come back?
No, just to give to me.
Really?
She saved in secret to give to me, which was mystery to me, always has been.
It's probably from guilt, I would assume.
I don't know. I mean, my boyfriend's dad found out that I had this money, so decided all of a sudden he wanted to charge me a weekly rate for staying in this house.
Oh, wow.
So he started wanting money. Dad got very angry about that and decided he would persuade my mum to let me come home because it wasn't fair.
Yeah.
Reluctantly, she let me come back, but she made me feel extremely unwelcome.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be there.
It's really bizarre.
And she started abusing my father.
Wow.
Physically and mentally. She would threaten to kill herself.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it was down to the fact that I was there and she didn't want me there. So I made a very, very tough decision. And by then I was 17. And I went out one day on the bus into town, and I went to the Citizens Advice Bureau. And I remember I sat there for 3.5 hours. I was shaking. And when they came out and spoke to me, I told a little lie. I told the lady, I says, my father is wanting me out by the end of the month, so I need some place to live. Back then, it was easy to get into a homeless hostel. By that afternoon, they'd offered me a room. It was pretty gross. You know, there was rubbish and all sorts on the floor. The bed looked like it had seen better days, and the room was dingy.
I'm sure.
I took it. When I told my dad, he was visibly upset.
Yeah.
But I said to him, I can't sit here and watch her be abusive to you simply because I'm here. And a week later, I walked out and I made myself homeless, and I went into this hostel.
At 17.
At 17 years old. Not streetwise, had no clue. I was afraid as well. All I had was a black bin bag with clothes in.
Yeah.
That was my life at the time. And he broke my heart as well that day, because he dropped me off outside the hostel in the car, and then he just left me in the street and drove away. He didn't look back. He waved at me and drove away, and he didn't even leave me with any money. The hostel had to give me some food because I had absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And I was used to smoke at the time, and I remember I sat there that night listening to all the sounds in the hostel, and I must have gone through a whole packet of cigarettes. Thinking about what was I doing here? What have I done? Have I done the right thing? And then I thought back about Mum and her behaviour and how she was, and it was really tough.
Yeah.
It was really tough. But what hurt the most was I got the feeling afterwards that Dad suddenly didn't have time for me. When I found him, he was too busy. He was so wrapped up in looking after Mum. It's almost as if I wasn't there anymore. So I threw myself into getting used to hostel life. I got involved. I made friends with people, but they were the wrong sort of people.
You probably didn't have a lot of good options.
I didn't. But it's like I said before, I wasn't streetwise. I had no idea what I'd gotten myself.
You were surviving. The only way you could.
I was taken advantage of. I had things stolen from me. I was bullied and pushed around a little bit by some people. Pardon me. I know that money was very difficult. I was trying to train to become a carer for the elderly, but we didn't get a lot of benefit money to live on. So I used to go and steal food sometimes to eat. That's what
no shame in that.
And
eating is important.
Once or twice, because of getting picked on and pushed about, I ended up being afraid to go back to my own bed, so I'd end up sleeping on the streets.
Wow.
And I was either on the streets or in the hostel on and off for a period of 6 months. And a lot of the time, I was getting cigarettes off other people, and I was stealing from shops.
Surviving.
You know,
You're surviving.
I even, and you know what, I would quite happily admit there were times when things were so tough, I would eat what was left in bins. I've eaten out of bins. I've done that, you know. I eventually I landed a bedsit in a really rough part of town. And it was...
What part of England were you in then?
I was in a city called Birmingham. And I was in an area called Edgbaston. And
okay.
It was a nice area. And I had to walk, I can't remember, about 3 or 4 miles to work.
Wow.
Because I couldn't afford the public transport, not even a bus.
Yeah.
The money that I got wouldn't even cover the rent.
Yeah.
You know, I would walk there, I'd do probably a 10-hour shift, and then I'd walk home again. Get a few hours sleep, walk back to work, and then I would eat whatever the old people had left over in the fridges in the kitchen. So I'd probably have a slice of cake for breakfast if that was all that was left in there. Or on the way, I'd check in the bins outside the local pub to see if anyone had left the half-eaten fish and chips or something. And a lot of people think, yeah, that's pretty gross, but for me, it was something to eat.
It's surviving. It's surviving. When you have nothing, you have to do what you have to do.
Yeah. I got even arrested.
Did you?
I got arrested 3 times. That shows how good I was at it. I got arrested 3 times. The 3rd time I was charged, and I never forgot the magistrate who I had to face, and he was very, very stern, but what he said to me worked, because he said, when I got up this morning, I was in a horrendous mood, and he said, when I saw that I got a shoplifter in front of me again, I was going to make an example of you and put you in prison for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Because I'm sick to death of people thinking they can come and steal from companies who have people who work hard in them. He said, but then I read your circumstances and the struggle that you've had.
Yeah.
And I decided I'm going to go easy on you, and I'm not going to do that. He said, because I accept that you weren't doing it to be malicious in any way. He said, however, I will give you a 12-month suspended sentence, which meant that if I committed any crime, I went to court for anything, no matter how minor, in those 12 months, I would do that 6 weeks in prison.
Yeah.
No argument. And I had to pay an £89 fine. But it was enough to frighten me to never, ever steal again.
But it was also, that was real kindness too, you know?
It was.
Like, he could have tossed you, but, and, you know, like, isn't that a blessing? I know you see that, you know? I mean, I know of all people, you see that. You're amazing. So, you know, from early life through, like, up to that stage, like, what did that teach you? What have you, I mean, you're the master of, like, you've learned so much from all your shit. You're amazing, seriously. But what did that stage teach you?
Oh, gosh. Well, by then I pretty much... I had a funny feeling by then, because I thought it didn't matter how tough or difficult things got. I thought I always seemed to... Something comes at the last minute and I always seem to move on to the next stage, and I'm like, hang on, I'm still standing up, I'm still surviving, I'm still okay.
You're amazing. Absolutely.
The magistrate looked at me and he said, I can see that you not only were not being malicious, he said, I can see that you're sorry as well. he said, so the least we can do is meet you halfway.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you've been charged and brought up in court, so we've got to give you a punishment. He said, but we can be lenient and meet you halfway and give you a chance to show that you can behave. So I pretty much learned that I could survive anything, and I just had to be positive about it. And I got smarter as at least I thought I'd got.
No, you did. No, you did.
I did in some ways, but not quite in others.
That's okay, because you learn that later, and that's the beautiful thing for everyone. Like that. I mean, I've learned things, and I coached you for a while, but you're like family. We talk. For anyone listening, this is the only person in England I talk to on a regular basis, and her kids and boyfriend or fiance are like family to me. So like, but I'm still learning things about you. But like, yeah, that's not the end. But you did learn that. What you just said is pretty powerful. Yeah, you didn't learn every lesson.
No,
You knew you could survive no matter what.
We are always learning.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned something quite recently, but that will be way down the line. But I'm still learning. You tell me that I have changed so much since we've known each other in those 6 years. I look back at what I used to be like way back then when I was 17 and 18, and I think to myself, God, if I knew then what I knew now, I'd be smacking myself around the head. I'd be like, what are you doing? I suppose we have to make mistakes. We have to fall in order to learn from them and to grow.
We have to fall down in order to learn to get back up.
Yes. And unfortunately,
yes,
when you're down and you're at your lowest, it is so easy to think, I can't get up. I'm just going to stay there because there's no hope, there's no point, it's not going to work, and whatever. But you're not going to. You can only go down to so much of a level before you think the only way now is up. You can't go anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I've been there a few times, many different situations, and I'm quite proud of myself.
I am
the way I've come out of it.
Fucking super proud of you. You're one of the most amazing people I know. You really are. And I know that doesn't mean it means something to you, but I know you don't get it. But
I tell you what, at one point, I mean, I could have gotten into drink and drugs. I've been exposed to it.
Absolutely.
But after, because I couldn't pay my rent in this bedsit I was living in, I ended up going to the local council, who moved me to a flat in an even worse place in Birmingham called Aston. And I lived in a high-rise, 14 floors up in the air, so I couldn't have been more isolated if I tried.
Yeah.
And I was put in a block full of drug addicts and drunks and all sorts of people. And one day, a gang of men invaded my flat and made themselves at home. And I was on my own and I was vulnerable. And they were making themselves food and drink, and they were sitting around, and they had weapons.
Wow.
They had knives.
How old were you?
I was 18.
Wow.
These guys were like between probably 18 and 20.
Yeah.
They had, one had a machete. The other had like a hunter's knife. It was a really big knife. And I thought, these guys are gonna stay here, and I won't be able to get rid of them, and they're probably gonna try and rape me or something. You know, I didn't know what was gonna happen. They wanted me to go with them somewhere, and I was frightened to death I was gonna get stabbed if I didn't go. So I went with them, and they took me to a local railway station where there was a man stood on his own waiting for a train.
Mm-hmm.
They gave me a knife and told me to mug him.
Really?
Yeah. They gave me a knife and they told me to mug him. And this was a isolated train station. And they wanted me to mug him and I wouldn't do it. And they threatened to throw me in front of the next train if I didn't do it. And I still wouldn't do it. And this guy realised something was going on because he could hear the commotion and he ran away. And I thought, these guys are probably going to beat me now or throw me on the train tracks or do something with me. But they didn't.
Wow.
They didn't. They took the knife off me and they pushed me about a little bit and then they threatened me and then they walked off and they left me on my own at the train station.
I never knew that either. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's scary. I can't imagine that at 18.
I did. They told me that if I told anybody about it or if I went to the police, any of them, they would. I went back home, and this is the first time I've told anybody about that ever.
Wow.
All those years, you know, they wanted me to threaten to cut his throat unless he handed over all his belongings, and I wouldn't do it. That's not something. That's not me.
No, it's not you.
I couldn't do that.
I know that's not you.
You know, I'd never been so. Oh well, I have been just as scared in the past, but that at that point, I'd never been so frightened in my life about what could happen.
But you held in there, and you survived again.
I did.
You survived again. So, tell us. Let's go to how did you get out of that life, that situation?
That's the thing. This is where I met somebody who kind of, how I see it now, but I didn't see it at the time, he was more or less pretending to be my friend.
Mm-hmm.
He, you know, he was on my side. He felt protective of me because I didn't have any family. I had no contact with my family because my father had moved hundreds of miles away with mum and completely cut me off.
Mm-hmm.
So this chap was, even though he was 20 years older than me, by the time he'd met me, I was quite an emotional mess. And
he swooped in to be the hero.
He swooped in to be the hero, and I clung to him.
Yeah.
And I saw him as a lifeline. So he, you know, would buy me food and keep me company, and he'd make sure that I didn't get any trouble at my flat. And you know, I started to get really fond of him, and after a couple of months, I thought I actually loved him. I got that attached to him very quickly. And when I look back at it now, I think I know that was his plan. It's like grooming somebody. That was his plan. That's what he wanted.
And all you needed at that stage for what you had already faced most of your life, like any kind of external attention or love or whatever, must have been amazing.
It was,
at least in at that time.
Yeah,
even though what
it
it
was.
developed. But yeah, keep going.
He could have had two heads. It wouldn't have. It wouldn't have changed my mind. It was. I was just oblivious to what he was really like. Because once he got his foot in the door, that was it. It was little things, you know. After a while, he didn't like me talking to people. He He didn't like if I had anyone come to the flat.
Yeah.
I got a job in a local pub to try and earn some money, and he objected to that because if you're working in a bar, you're talking to men.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he would start to verbally abuse me quite a lot and call me a lot of things and talk to me really badly. And I would put it down to I was in a bad mood. It's okay. Because I thought if I lost him, I would be devastated. He's,
he was your lifeline,
the love of my life, and he was my lifeline. So, and that's how I saw it. And he would threaten. He would say, "Yeah, I'm leaving you. We're done. I'm finished with you, because you're this and you're that." And I would be in pieces, begging for him not to do that. And he almost enjoyed watching me beg. In that sense, but then he would relent after a little while, and just let me think everything was okay, and until he found something else to blow up about. So, but he, one day, I found out I was pregnant, and at the time I found out I was pregnant, he was in prison for a couple of weeks for a driving offence. He was only in prison for 2 weeks. When I found out I was pregnant, I was 3 weeks pregnant. But he obviously can't do maths because he still accused me of doing something while he was in prison. So he started to threaten me. He would push and shove me about, and I sat in his flat when I was 6 weeks pregnant, and I had a miscarriage, and I sat in his bathroom and I hemorrhaged everywhere.
Wow.
And I called out for help because I couldn't stand up, and he put his head round the door, and I was sat in just a pool of blood on the floor. And I said, I think I need to go to hospital now. And he looked at me and he said, well, you can sort yourself out, tidy up while you're at it. And he put his coat on and he left me sat there on my own, covered in blood. So I had to wrap myself up, and I phoned for an ambulance, and they came and fetched me. Needless to say, I didn't clean up after myself. I just went with him.
I can't blame you. That's okay. You get a pass on not cleaning. My God.
I went to the hospital. Nobody came. I was in the hospital on my own. The only people who showed me any kindness was the doctor and the nurse who held my hand when they put me to sleep. I had to have a small operation to put things right. And then I was released the next day.
Yeah.
When I went back to his flat, he actually pushed me to the ground and screamed at me and threatened to hit me.
Are you shitting me? After you get back from the hospital?
Yeah. And he told me, he said, you should have cleaned that mess up. He said, I come back to my flat and you've left blood all over my bathroom. And you don't clean it up. And he was shouting and swearing and he was screaming in my face. And he said, he said, you're disgusting. And he said, you leave my flat.
Welcome home.
That was it. And then to devastate me even more, I went to phone my dad the next day to tell him what had happened. And the first thing that came out of my dad's mouth was, did you do anything to cause the miscarriage?
Mm.
So I put the phone down and I couldn't talk to him because I was just so upset, you know. And I thought, well, I'm just going to get my stuff together and I'm going to go back to my own flat because I can't stay here anymore. And then as I was getting my stuff together, he put me in a headlock. Where do you think you're going? He said. You ain't going anywhere. You think I don't know what you've been doing? And then I was being accused of sleeping around again. And I basically learned that whenever he raised his voice or got into a mood, to keep my mouth shut, because the more I opened my mouth and said anything, the more likely he was going to hit me. So I kept it shut.
Wow. Like, oh my God. I'm so glad you're still alive. I'm being dead serious. Not to interrupt, but like I'm learning things about you, and I've known you for a long time, but like you're amazing. You're amazing. You are amazing.
I think that's how I survived as long with him as I did, because I very, very quickly learned when to shut up. Even when I shouldn't have had to. But it wasn't, I mean, people would probably look at it from the outside and say, oh, would you put up with that? I just up go. Why would you put up with it? For me, it wasn't that simple. I didn't have anybody.
No, you didn't have
to go
anyone.
to. I had no one. I had nowhere to go. And back then, police, authority, domestic violence wasn't taken that seriously back then. They didn't get involved. So there was no point. You know, I thought, well, Mum always used to say, you make your bed, you lie in it. I thought, well, this is the bed I've made for myself. I've just got to keep my mouth shut and get on with it. My life became all about keeping peace after that, making sure he was happy, making sure that I did everything that he liked. But it didn't stop him from becoming more and more abusive, you know. And I got pregnant again, inevitably, a couple of years later. But it wasn't until it wasn't until I was probably 6 months along, then he started to get a little bit physical with me. He would push me about. He would tell me, I've got a violent reputation. The police know me really well. He said, if you tell anybody that I am that kid's father, you will lose your children. They will have no sympathy for you. Being young and never having any involvement
and
with that
6 months pregnant. Yeah.
It was more or less like brainwashing. I believed everything he told me. I thought, you know, like my mother, if authorities found out what I'd gotten myself into, they'd have no sympathy for me. I felt that I needed to protect my baby. One day, one morning, he walked into my bedroom. He threw the blanket back. Obviously, I was starting to show because I was pregnant.
Sure.
Look at the state of you, he said. Look at you. You're fat. You're disgusting. He said, he said, who'd want anything to do with you? He said, you've really let yourself go. I don't know how I let myself get seen with you in public. And at that point, he tried to kick me in the face, and I was pregnant.
My God.
He came literally that far from my face. And that day he throttled me as well, to the point where I nearly passed out.
Oh my God.
And he paraded me in front of the bathroom mirror, and he said, look, he said, what I can do to you. And I had black and blue fingerprints around my throat.
Jesus.
He even headbutted me in bed the following night. I was trying to talk to him, and he rolled over and he headbutted me, and I had blood all over my face. And then he started pulling my hair. Let me see. Oh, it's not that bad. Why are you crying? And again, he stood me in front of the mirror and he says, this is what I can do to you. And he said, you think authorities will let you keep your baby? You're pathetic.
Control.
And that's
Control based in fear, obviously.
And, you know, for him, I was such an easy target because I was on my own. I didn't have anybody.
He was the hero that saved you.
I owed him. I owed him. In his eyes,
I
owed him. I owed him because he was the man who swooped in and kept all those troublemakers from my door, and he fed me when I was hungry and gave me money when I needed it. So I owed him forever in his eyes. So that gave him a right to hit me and abuse me. And he's even hit me in the face walking down the street in public and laughed at me. And
he's tried worse than that too, but yeah.
He has. He's, you know, he even right up to when I had my baby, about a week before she was born, he went into prison to finish a sentence off because he broke his, I don't know, you call it like parole.
Yeah. Yeah, parole.
Parole, well, he violated his, so he had to go back to prison. And he was caught and sent back a week before my daughter was born. And when she was born, I think the vicar in the prison where he was being kept told him that I'd had a little girl. So he phoned the hospital and he said the baby had better be white. He said, because God help you if I come out of prison and that baby's not white.
Wow.
He said, I will break you. And this was on the phone to the hospital.
I can't even imagine.
When he did come out, he came out a day after I'd got home with my baby. And he walks into the house and I had her in like a carry cot thing, like a basket.
Yeah.
Come and looks in the basket and he went, you're lucky she's white. You are damn lucky she's white. And that was all he said. And then he went, I'm off for a cigarette. And he went, and that was it. And that's just being polite. He couldn't string two words to me without swearing and being abusive.
No.
You know, and I did say to him, please don't smoke around the baby, because he kept lighting his cigarettes up around the baby.
Sure.
I'll do what I like.
Wow.
It's not going to hurt the baby. Be fine. I'll do what I like.
Wow.
And he would swing from nasty to nice to nasty to nice whenever he felt like it. And it was almost like he would punish me because he felt like doing it for no reason whatsoever, knowing that he would threaten to leave me and then he'd watch me grovel and get upset.
It was his way to control everything.
You'll never cope as a mother. You'll never cope as a mother. You're useless. You're fat. Look at the state of you. And that's all I ever used to get off him. You know, when my daughter was 1, he left us with no money. I couldn't afford it. I bought her a little cake and that was it. And we celebrated her first birthday in a cold house with no food. And he didn't even turn up. He didn't want to know.
I'm only smiling because you're just more and more amazing than more I know about you, and super grateful for you and for you being on and sharing. But my God, you're a badass. Give me the high five. Come on.
I mean, I think some of these details are details that I've probably never shared with you.
Mm-hmm.
But he was, to me, he was like a crutch. But when I had my child, I felt more and more protective of her and cared a lot less about him.
Mm-hmm.
But I still had to keep the peace with him because I was still afraid that authorities would storm my home and take my child away and be against me. And I was still afraid that he would come and hurt me because he would threaten me with his family.
Yeah.
He would threaten me with his so-called friends.
Mm-hmm.
So he would keep me under control using fear. Or if anything went wrong in his life, he would kind of turn it around as if it was my fault. So he would use guilt as well. He'd say, oh, everybody knows I've got a criminal record. Nobody messes with me. And social services will have no sympathy for you because I'm violent, you know I'm violent, but you still had a kid with me. So he'd got me right where he wanted me. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I knew what he was doing. I knew he was going out there and sleeping with girls and just being himself while I was stuck at home with a baby. But I chose to bury my head in the sand because it was the safest option. I knew that my child wouldn't get hurt and I wouldn't get hurt if I just pretended it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
And if he got angry, then it was simply my fault. And that's what my mind was like. When by then I'd lost my job at the bar because they'd closed down, so I couldn't escape anywhere. I was stuck at home with the baby and with him.
Yeah.
Got me right where he wanted me. So time went on. As time went on, it was about keeping the peace. And then my son came along 3 years later. And for some reason, I thought, maybe he'll realise after all this time that I am a loyal woman and I'm not like all the rest. And maybe by now he would learn to respect me a bit more and he would treat me properly. But it wasn't to be.
Yeah.
It wasn't. He didn't so much attack me during my pregnancy with my son, but he got aggressive with me within weeks of him being born. One night he said, I put the light on because my son was crying and I needed to feed him. He said, turn that light off or I'll smash your face in. I'm trying to sleep.
Jesus.
Wow. He'd just have outbursts like that.
Yeah.
And if we were struggling for food and stuff, well, it's your fault. You should go out and sell your body.
Wow.
But if I'd have gone out and done something like that, he would have hammered me to hell.
Sure.
So I could. There was.
You had no inner. I don't know how you made it. I don't know. I don't know.
I didn't know which way was up, down, or what I was going to do. And I'll be brutally honest with you. I would be lying if I said I never thought of taking the easy route out.
Sure.
And I think you understand what I mean.
I did. I think we've all been there.
The only thing that stopped me from taking that step was the fact that I had 2 children. But it didn't stop me from self-harming.
Yeah.
I started doing things like cutting myself.
Sure.
And even overdosing on my asthma medication. And I thought, it was something else to concentrate on other than what I was going through.
Yeah.
But if I hadn't have had children, I may have taken the easy route out. And it crossed my mind many times because I didn't have anybody or anywhere else to go, and he knew that. So, he thought, well, I can hang that over her head. She will always come back to me, and this is how he looked at it. I can hurt her as much as I want, but she will always come back to me because she's nothing without me. And he's told me to my face.
Yeah. Sounds like some narcissism.
Nobody would ever want me because I'm fat and disgusting. And he would say, if it weren't for you, if it weren't for me, you wouldn't be here now. You'd still be in that flat in Aston and all that. And I believed it all. I thought, well, this is my life. I've got to get on with it. So when my son got older, and he played no part in looking after the babies, by the way, he just left me to that. It was woman's work, according to him. But as my son got older and started primary school, I started to mix with the other parents, and I made friends with some of the mums. And it was quite refreshing, actually, to have someone else to talk to. But I never told anybody my secret about what I was living with. But then one day, he didn't like me talking to people. And one day, he came into the house and he was in a rage. And I don't, to this day, know what it was about. But whatever it was quite obviously my fault. And he came in and then started talking about, why do I take so long dropping my son off at school, and why do I have to talk to people? Why can't I just come home? And I remember it clearly. It was on my birthday, and he pulled out a very large kitchen knife in front of my child, in front of my son, got me round the hair with one hand and prodded my stomach with this knife. And he said, you see that all I've got to do is push my hand, and it's game over. He said, because I'd stand there and watch you bleed. He said, so you breathe or say anything at all, and I don't like what you're saying to me, all I've got to do is push my hand. I didn't move. I didn't breathe a word. I looked him in the eye and I didn't breathe a word. And he said, there, you see, you'll do exactly as I say because you know I'm right. And my son was watching. He threw the knife in the sink and he said, don't ever, ever push me. He said, because one day I will do it.
Wow.
And he left the house, he went up to the local shop and he sat there for 2 hours. He came back again, and I was adamant I didn't want anything to do with him. I thought, I can't do this anymore. But then the children were there, and I thought, well, am I doing the right thing? And at some point, he hit me. But he hit me so hard, I can't remember him hitting me because he knocked me out. He knocked me clean out in front of the kids.
How old were the kids then?
Brandon was about 4, maybe 5.
Yeah.
I remember arguing with him in the kitchen. The next thing I know, I'm just waking up face down on the floor in the hallway just above the stairs. And we had stripy wallpaper at the time, and the wallpaper was swimming.
I bet it was.
And I could feel my face was swelling. I could feel the swelling. And I slowly he was stood over me. His feet were right next to my face. He was stood over me looking down. And I remember I could hear Brandon was behind my head sitting on the floor. And as I stood up, I could feel my face was beginning to swell. And he said, oh, that looks nasty. You do realise you did that to yourself, don't you?
Oh, my God.
That was nothing to do with me. And he said, if you try and blame me, he said, I will come after you. And he went away. I stood in I looked in the mirror about half an hour later, and my face had gone purple from the top of my head all the way down to my chin and parts of my neck, and my face had swelled up and my eye had closed. He hadn't knocked any teeth out. How he hadn't is absolutely beyond me. It was just bruising. It didn't even hurt. But
it was you that did it, though, right? Just kidding. I know. Like, my God. The fact you would even say that blows my mind.
Yeah, he said no. Because I was unconscious, he thought that he could convince me that I had done it to myself. You know? But again, afraid of consequences, I lied to everybody. And people obviously asked me, my God, what's happened to your face? I said, I got mugged. I said I was robbed and I was attacked in the street, and it was easier to just lie and cover it up than to admit the truth as to what was going on.
Wow.
So it's
how did you let's get to, and you're going to be back so many times. But on top of everything else, you know, both your kids have special needs. And that's the most beautiful thing about you. When you share pictures, when you talk about them, when I've talked to them, like you've never viewed them any differently. You're just a proud mom. But I know it's not been easy, but oh God, you're amazing. But yeah,
I never ever hid their disabilities from their dad, ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I told him, I mean, my daughter was diagnosed when she was 4. And when I told him, he said, so you have slept with someone else then? That can't be my kid. So that's as far as that conversation went.
Yeah.
And then back then, my son's problems were just classed as learning disabilities. There was nothing really major there.
Yeah.
But it didn't stop him from branding the 2 innocent children a pair of retards.
Wow.
I'm not the one who's fat and frumpy and stuck with 2 retards. So who's going to want anything to do with you? And that's how nasty. And he would talk to me like that in public as well.
Wow.
He would shout at me and lash out at me and push me about in public. Unfortunately, you know, and I think it's still the same today, you know, back then, not a lot of people wanted to get involved. They'd pretend it wasn't happening and they'd walk past. But it used to happen. And even then, I was still afraid to tell anybody, tell the police, or tell anyone. But going back to when he had hit me and threatened me with a knife, I'd had enough. I could not. I mean, his behaviour was affecting our daughter. She was getting older. She could see what was going on. There was only so much shielding I could do in terms of them. And I thought, if I don't tell anybody, he might flip one day. He might kill me.
It's come close.
He was always threatening to. So I thought, I've got to do something. But I met you before that happened. I met you. I'd only just started talking to you because I remember one of the things that wound him up was he didn't like all the sticky notes that you got me to put on the wall.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I do remember that.
I approached you. I wanted to try and build bridges with my dad by then because we hadn't spoken for a long time. And that's what I originally came to you for. I still hadn't told anybody about my relationship at all. I kept it from you for a very long time as well. And he used to get wound up because you used to get me to do these sticky notes. And I'd put them all up on the wall. What's all that shit on the wall? He'd be like, what's all this all over the wall? I'd be like, okay. Yeah, I said I've been talking to Lance. I told him about you, and he swore blind that you were somebody that I must have been sleeping with, and that you was
Yeah.
in England
We're so
somewhere.
close by, right?
I said,
Different Birminghams.
I said, Birmingham, Alabama. No, he's in Birmingham, England. You think I'm stupid? And, ever since
Yeah.
then, he was convinced that something was going on between you and me. I couldn't convince him otherwise. Even the fact that he'd never seen you, he still wasn't convinced.
Yeah.
But when I'd made the decision to come away from him, and it took a while for me to actually have the courage to tell him that I didn't want to be with him anymore. Mm-hmm. He was convinced it was all down to you.
Sorry.
He was.
It wasn't a way, because I was trying to help you be you, but I didn't know any of that at the time. I was just being me.
Yeah, well,
you came to me with whatever, and I was just getting going with it. But
funnily enough, I used to talk to my current partner, Chris, on the phone, on Twitter, and he's on the autistic spectrum as well. And when I said, it's not Lance, I'm not seeing Lance, I said, but I do talk to Lance and I do talk to Chris, and he wanted to know who Chris was, and I said, well, he's my friend and he's got autism. He said, if he's autistic, he's not a threat, he must be stupid.
Wow.
So it was all the focus was on you.
My fault.
And
we've never met.
I remember Chris said to me, he says, poor Lance. He says he's being accused of all sorts of things and the poor man doesn't even know.
I am so grateful to be blamed for whatever. Absolutely.
It was all your fault, because
it was my fault.
He was convinced that I had started to, he said, you've been different since you've been talking to him.
I do remember you saying that. You were different.
I was changing.
I didn't do that. You did that.
I distanced myself from him after a while. I wouldn't let him come near me. There was nothing intimate there at all. I wouldn't let him lay a finger on me. And he was trying, like most abusive people, he went through a stage of, I'll try and woo her and be romantic. So he was doing the one thing he'd never do. He'd started buying me flowers and wanting to take me out.
Different from trying to choke you and knocking you out and blaming you.
And it was creepy.
Blaming you for it. Yeah.
It was creepy because he weren't like that. And he was making me feel ever so uncomfortable. But it didn't take him long to realise that weren't going to wash.
Yeah.
And so that's when the threats started to come in, and he started to get nasty. And in the end, I said to him, I mean it. I don't want you to come back. I can't. I don't need you like you say I need you. I don't. I deserve better. And this is how I truly felt. I said, I deserve better than this. I'm a human being. I'm not, you treat me like crap on the bottom of your shoe and you kick me about, and it's not right.
Yeah.
So then he'd try and climb through my windows. He'd sit outside my door all night long. He'd follow me round in the streets. He would threaten to smash me windows in. He'd shout abuse through the letterbox and upset the children overnight. So
then he tried to throw acid and shit on
Yes, he did.
you and your daughter.
He did in the finish. He had a court order to stay away, and he didn't. No matter how many times he was told to stay away, he wouldn't stay away. And the police said, even if you see him standing outside your door not doing anything, still phone us, because it stacks up against him and it ain't going to look good in a court of law for him. But by then he had completely lost it.
Yeah.
He he even came to my door and he said, "How can you do this to me? I haven't eaten for weeks and weeks. I'm ill. After everything I've done for
Poor
you, you
me.
owe me." Yeah,
All
poor
he's done
me.
for you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I said to him, "No, no." I said, I'm not doing this anymore. So, yeah. He went away with his tail between his legs. But then, just a minute, he decided he was going to cook up a plan and try and throw acid in my face. He waited until my daughter was doing what she loved most, and that was watching the trains. And we were in an isolated spot. I had my headphones on listening to music. It was only the fact that she saw him coming up behind me that I knew he was there. He hid behind 2 cars. He planned to creep up behind me and he was going to tip sulfuric acid into my face.
Holy shit. Wow.
But my daughter saw him and she screamed, and when I looked round, he was there. So luckily I was able to avoid most of it when he threw it. A lot of it went into my clothes and it literally burnt through the first layer and changed the colour of my clothes altogether.
I'm sure.
And the last thing he said to me was, "I will be back to finish the job." He said, "I'll set fire to the house while you lot are asleep." He said, "I'll make sure you don't get out. I'll finish the job." And that was the last time. And that was just over 4 years ago when I saw him. But I didn't feel truly free until I actually packed up and left the city to start again. And that was scary as hell, just to leave everything behind and start again, and to uproot the children like that.
Yeah.
But when I did it, I couldn't believe I pulled it off.
You did.
I couldn't believe it. I stood there in Chris's flat and I said, "I can't believe I've done it." I dreamed of being able to just get away and not and just be away from it and not be in danger anymore. But I never thought it would actually happen.
So proud of you.
Never in a million years, ever.
I hope that even you sharing all this again, I hope you realize what a badass you are. I'm not kidding you. Like,
I've never looked at it like that. I've never.
Well, good. My God.
Never. I mean,
Well,
by then, you obviously knew what had been happening with him because
in details, but there's so much that I didn't even know until now. But it, oh, thank you. You're such a blessing to me, and have been, and my ups and downs. Like, just to know that, like, you've been able to share your life with me, and you've been through some rough things, and oh God, just like, I'm so proud of you.
But just through you being you, I don't think you quite grasp what you did for me, because looking back at what he was saying, that I started to change after I started talking to you and you said I started to change. Before that, I wouldn't have told anybody what was going on with him. But I know I started to change because I started to look at myself differently, and I thought, I deserve better than this. I can't settle for this. That's not a life. I couldn't do that. And the only person who could change that was me.
Amen. Absolutely.
And that wouldn't have happened. I can't say it would never have happened somewhere down the line, but it wouldn't have happened then if I hadn't started talking to you. You kind of opened something up in my mind that I didn't know was there.
And I don't know how or what.
I don't know. You were
I do
just being
remember
crazy
like
ass
week
self at the
2.
time. You were just you were just being
I
you.
have to get into week 2. So like the second week of coaching Helen, not getting any details. I had an idea of what she wanted to do to like heal their father, and I basically made her
I knew
call,
you were
made you
crazy
so
ass.
fucking uncomfortable. Oh my God.
I,
It was such a learning lesson, and it's hilarious because we
I
can
knew
still joke
you were
about it, but
crazy ass after that second week,
you
and
knew I was what?
I knew you were a crazy ass after that second week, and I had to stay in touch with you.
I love it.
I cannot believe you just got me into a corner on that second night. But
it's such a blessing to me. Like retrospectively, life-changing moment. Even it makes me a better listener, and yeah, I learned a lot through that. But oh yeah, that's funny.
yeah, but you need to know
Yeah.
that if you hadn't have played the part that you did at the time, I probably wouldn't be here today. And the same goes for Chris as well, because both of you towards the end were aware of what was going on, and I had your support at one end of the pond and I had his support on my end of the pond. So it was nice knowing that somebody was there and that I didn't have to worry about being on my own. And plus, when the neighbours got to find out what was going on, I had neighbours flooding to my house. Are you okay? Do you need anything? We'll break his legs if we see him. You know, he's not welcome back here. Don't worry, we'll look out for you. And I thought, my God, people do care. And I let him convince me for years that nobody would give a shit, that it would all be my fault. I made my bed, I got a lie in it, and that I would lose my children if authorities found out. I didn't tell authorities what was going on. The social services were mortified.
Yeah.
They said if we'd have known that, we wouldn't have taken your children. We would have supported you and convinced you to leave that man. But he brainwashed me to think otherwise. But I could have, I was traumatized. I was all over the place directly after it happened. But after a while, I thought to myself, I am alive. And I got through it. And I was grateful for that. And I didn't want, I thought he took 16 years of my life and he made it miserable and he filled it with fear. I thought, I can't let him take any more years out of my life and do that. And after a while trying to settle into a new life, I decided I wanted to turn what had happened to me into something positive, and to try and reach out to people who have either been through or are going through a situation like that, where they can't talk to anybody and they think they've got nowhere to turn to. I want to reach out to people like that because I've been there and I know how it feels. And I find that the more I talk about what I go through, the easier it is to talk about. And I'm proud of myself for the way that I've come through it.
Amen.
I am.
Say that again. Say it again.
I'm proud of myself.
Wait, what'd you say?
I've come through it. I'm proud of myself.
Good. Damn it. Good. I'm super proud of you. I'm proud you say that. Keep going.
So I the kids have grown and they've flourished, and I think my life with Chris was totally different. I'd never had a life like it before, where whereas he would not want to cuddle me because it was like I had some sort of a disease, Chris would cuddle me all the time.
Yeah.
And I'd never had anything like that before, ever. To be able to walk around and not feel like something's going to happen really bad if I say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing.
You didn't settle.
I didn't settle. Not in
You
the
not only
end.
didn't settle,
No.
like you survived though. I mean, there's a lot of people that settle, but like you survived a lot of things that I'm so proud to hear you say that you're proud of yourself.
I
Cause
am proud of myself.
you gotta be. Oh my God. Oh, and there's so,
Yeah.
and you, as you know, because you've walked those, you've been through abuse and mental illness as a child with your mom. You've been in abusive relationships. You've been trapped. You've, like had to learn to parent two kids that have special needs. Like you've had lots of obstacles. What, I guess, and since it's, oh God, what time is it there? Is it 12:45 your
It's
time?
fine. It's
I know.
11:45. It's
Oh
fine.
yeah, shit. I'm off on the time change again. Okay, good. All right. But like what message would you say to someone that might be, especially in like a, controlling abusive relationship, like you made it out. You made it out. And what I've learned from just working with people and talking to people is most people that are in that state, they blame themselves. They think that they are doing something wrong or they are failing or they are letting someone down. Like, how did you get there? What advice could you give someone that's stuck?
Well, when you're in a situation like that, the one thing that you fear is what they can physically do to you.
Yeah,
So I wouldn't ever dream of telling somebody in that position what they shouldn't do,
sure.
because only they know in that situation what is more safe to do and what is
I should
risky.
definitely rephrase
You
that
know,
because you're right. Every situation is different. But
it's
what
different, but
what words of hope and encouragement could you offer to someone that's stuck?
whatever they tell you, whatever the abuser tells you, no matter how convincing it is, don't believe them. Even if they tell you they love you.
Mm.
If they say to you, I love you, you are my world, I will do anything for you, don't believe them. Because they will tell you they love you. They will buy you gifts. They will treat you like a prince or a princess or a prince, because it happens to men as well. Let's be honest.
It does.
They will pamper you and love you to bits, and they will also tell you that you are fat, you're ugly, you're worthless, nobody will want you, and you mustn't believe any of it, because everything that comes out of their mouth is, it's just narcissistic crap. That's all it is. It's not true. It's all lies, and it's all part of a plan to keep you in control.
Yeah.
Don't believe them, and don't believe for 1 second that you're on your own, because you are not, and you should not be afraid to tell someone or reach out, ever, no matter what they tell you. And it is scary, it is frightening, but you will know when you are ready to do that, and when you do it, it opens doors. It opens doors. You're,
So freaking proud of you.
you just by surviving, you're fighting for your life. But to get to the stage where you reach out to somebody is when you are ready for the next level.
Yeah.
And the change is scary, really, really scary. But it's worth it. It's worth it. No matter how scared you get, you're never alone. You're really, really not. It's a big world out there with lots of people in it, and there are lots of people going through exactly the same thing.
So proud of you. Thank you. Will you come back and do some more shows?
I will always come back.
I'll figure the time out eventually.
I will always come back, and I could talk about what I've had to face and what I've gone through until the cows come home, and I will do it if I know I've helped at least one person.
And that's the only reason I'm doing this, Helen. Like, so honored to like even have you be this open. And like, we all are still facing challenges in life. It's not about getting to a perfect place, but like, your story, this is powerful, this is amazing. And yeah, it's harder for you to see that, but I know you are proud of yourself. That what you said, that made me, that's fulfilling to me. That makes me happy. You're a badass. Get used to it.
And you realise, as far as we're concerned, you're like family.
Oh, your family too.
Not just, we.
I'm blessed.
I didn't think I would make any friends, real friends. I didn't think I would have any sort of life, and look where I am. And I could have died so many times. I could have ended up spending half my adult life in prison somewhere. I thought that I would never ever find my way out. But I want other people to know that when they feel like that and they can't get any lower and they think that there is no way out, there is. Believe me, there is.
Yes, there is.
It doesn't matter how bad it gets.
You're right. And you're living proof of that. And truthfully, just my sincerest gratitude for you. Like, you don't understand too. I mean, there's times that I've been facing shit too. But like, to know that I was able to, that you were willing to share your life with me and take a chance on me as a coach, which I was really not at the time, but I was just getting started. But actually, I always have been. It's just been the most natural thing. But like, yeah, even in my works at times, like, you're out there. You're out there. And I know you're out there if I ever need someone to talk to. But just to know that, I don't know, I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of you. And it's just getting cranked up. But you've survived, where a lot of people get lost and they can't get out of it. And that's, you're exactly right. That's why I'm doing these podcasts. That's why I'm starting this. If we can reach one person, all that matters.
And I'm also hoping to help other people understand a bit more about why somebody would stay in a situation like that.
Yeah.
Because it's easy for people on the outside to look in and think, well, I wouldn't do this and I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But people can be so easily manipulated by these abusive partners.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't truly know what it's like until you're faced with it yourself. But I don't know. I don't want people to feel afraid of being judged as well for the decisions that they make. I made a very conscious decision to stay with my abuser because of fear. The sorts of things he'd put into my head about what would happen if I left him.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have no one to turn to, nowhere to go, and you're told if you do tell anybody, bad things will happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to just keep your mouth shut and tell no one and just get on with it.
Yeah.
And I know what it's like. And I want people to know there is a way out. You don't have to keep it a secret. Don't believe anything that they tell you. And don't let the judgment of other people stop you from getting the life you deserve either.
Amen. That's a huge one. And that's that is the top regret of people in their deathbed. I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expect of me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Please, 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 like, come back on more and more, because we can get into this kind of stuff more. This was just your story, just a fraction of your story, but like, I'm a better human for having met you and knowing you. Not that we've even met in person. Thank you for being you, and you inspire me, and you will inspire many others. Look, we all get caught up in our own shit, and maybe we're having a bad day. It can always be worse.
Oh, definitely. There's always somebody worse off around the corner.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, sometimes even today, Everybody does it. They moan, oh shit, I've got no money. Everything's going wrong.
Yeah.
Life's going down the pan, and then it's so easy to feel sorry for yourself. But then you stop and think, oh, hang on a minute. You know, there are people going through worse problems than me.
Not only that, but like what you've made it through. Yeah. I can't fathom you, not to mention your life trajectories on the way up because of the changes you chose to make. And look, I'm not saying, look, I know you and we both have bad days. We both have real things that we have to face and deal with. But yeah, I think you're past the worst by far.
Oh, I certainly hope so.
Thank you so much. And I would be so honored to have you on more if you're available.
Anytime.
There's so much. And like just in summarizing, I'm not even going into all the questions, but like what do you hope that, you sharing your story at least today, what do you hope this can do for someone?
Offer someone hope.
Good.
To help. I want people to not just believe, but to know that they are worth so much more than what the abuser tells them. It's all lies. The abuse is it's just narcissism. It's crap. You're human beings. You're worth a lot more. We're all part of somebody's family at the end of the day. We're all human beings and we're all worth something.
Yes, we are.
So
proud of you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is fun.
It is. It is.
We did it. Yesterday we tried and we had like tornadoes and thunderstorms coming in and I knew this was going to be awesome. Let me tell you what, had we tried it yesterday and I lost power, holy shit, how mad I'd be. Oh my God. Thank you. My God, this is awesome. All right. So you're coming back soon, right?
I will.
All right.
Anytime.
Happy now. What are you doing this weekend? You going to relax?
No.
You got work. Oh yeah. You've been off. You've been on your weekend.
I've had my weekend. I've got work.
So the little known fact for all of us in the U.S., what is the name of Walmart in UK?
Asda.
ASTA, right? Had no clue.
Asda. And I work in Asda. I'm a checkout girl.
First time you've worked in, what, 18 years almost? 17, 18?
Yeah,
Good for you.
Yeah.
You're not just a checkout girl. You told me you've been trained in like 4 departments.
Oh, I have, yeah. I have been trained in departments, but I'm still a checkout girl. That's my main job. But I love it because I get to meet so many different people and I like... I find the grumpy ones really amusing, the rude ones.
You find them amusing too, right?
I do.
Sometimes that's all you can do is laugh.
After everything that I have gone through, I can take a little heat off the general public.
Yeah, You've got some thick skin. You're covered.
So
Thank you so
love
much.
it.
Thank you, Helen. Thanks for being on. Sincerely, I'm happy. I'm excited to be starting this. And I don't know. This is a powerful story.
Okay.
Like this is about surviving, and for everyone else that's watching or listening, but we all have bad days. But there is a way. There's a way through, no matter what. And you're living proof of that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
Join me again soon.
I will.
Happy now. Thanks, Helen.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.